Hello friends. Welcome back on ssbrocks. In this video we will cover Indo-China relations. The knowledge of this topic will help you in your lecturette and group discussion. If you want detailed information on any subject or topic in the form of knowledgeable video like this, feel free to contact us or just mention the topic in the comment box below. For more practice, subscribe ssbrocks, and don't forget to like, share and recommend ssbrocks to your friends. Don't forget to hit bell icon to get the notification of the next knowledgeable video. Friends, you can join us on our Telegram and WhatsApp group as link given in description below. And if you join us on our Facebook group, you will get opportunity to carry out discussion with thousands of SSB aspirants, as well as you will get free study material for SSB, NDA, CDS and other defense entrance examinations. This topic will be covered on the following heads. Firstly, we will discuss historical background. Then commercial and economic relations. Issue of Tibet. Relation in Post Indo-China War Period. Contemporary issues. India-China bilateral defense cooperation and current status of border dispute. Before we start the topic, let's focus on the important abbreviations, which you must know to understand this topic easily. PRC means People's Republic of China. CBM stands for Confidence Building Measure. LAC means Line of Actual Control. JEG is Joint Economic Group on Economic Relations and Trade. Science and Technology. SED, Strategic and Economic Dialogue. YOY stands for Year to Year. NEFA is Northeast Frontier Agency and JWG means Joint Working Group. So friends, let's get started. Firstly, we will focus on historical background of Indo-China relations. The People's Republic of China was established on the 1st of October 1949, and India was the first non-communist country to establish an embassy in China. On the 1st of April 1950, India and China established diplomatic relations. The two countries also jointly expounded the Panchsheel, 5 Principles of Peaceful Coexistence, in 1954. Chinese Premier Zhou Enlai visited India in June 1954 and Prime Minister Nehru visited China in October 1954. Premier Zhou Enlai again visited India in January 1957 and in April 1960. Friends, let's have a quick view over Panchsheel Agreement. Panchsheel Agreement signed between Prime Ministers of India and China in 1954 that sought to govern the relationship between the two countries on the basis of following 5 principles. First, mutual respect for each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty. Second, mutual non-aggression. Third, mutual non-interference in each other's internal affairs. Fourth, equality and mutual benefits. Fifth, peaceful coexistence. It guided the basis of relationship between 1954 to 57, marked by numerous visits and exchanges. This period of 3 years is described as years of Sino-Indian honeymoon. India supported China's membership in United Nations and China replied by its stand on Goa. The India-China conflict in 1962 led to a serious setback in bilateral relations. India and China restored ambassadorial relations in August 1976. Higher political level contacts were revived by the visit of the then External Affairs Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee in February 1979. The Chinese Foreign Minister Hu Wanghua paid a return visit to India in June 1981. Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi visited China in December 1988. During this visit, both sides agreed to develop and expand bilateral relations in all fields. It was also agreed to establish a joint working group to seek fair, reasonable and mutually acceptable solution on the boundary question and a joint economic group. From the Chinese side, Premier Li Peng visited India in December 1991. Prime Minister Narasimha Rao visited China in September 1993. The agreement on the maintenance of peace and tranquility along the line of actual control in the India-China border area was signed during this visit, providing for both sides to respect the status quo on the border. Clarify the line of actual control where there are doubts and undertake confidence-building measures. President R. Venkataraman paid a state visit to China in May 1992. This was the first head of state-level visit from India to China. President Jiang Zemin's state visit to India in November 1996 was similarly the first by a PRC head of state to India. The 4 agreements signed during his visit included the one on CBMs in the military field along the LAC, covering adoption of concrete measures between the two militaries to enhance exchanges and to promote cooperation and trust. After the nuclear tests in May 1998, the relations faced a minor setback. External Affairs Minister Jaswant Singh visited China in June 1999 and both sides reiterated that neither country is a threat to the other. President K.R. Narayanan's visit to China in May-June 2000 marked a return to high-level exchanges. Premier Zhou Rongji visited India in January 2002. Prime Minister Vajpayee visited China in June 2003, during which a declaration on principles for relations and comprehensive cooperation was signed. This was the first comprehensive document on development of bilateral relations signed at the highest level between India and China. India and China concluded a border trade protocol to add a border crossing between Sikkim and Tibet Autonomous Region. The two prime ministers appointed special representatives to explore from the political perspective of the overall bilateral relationship the framework of a boundary settlement. The year 2011 was the year of China-India exchange. The strategic and cooperative partnership for peace and prosperity between China and India maintained the momentum of sound and steady growth. Friendly exchanges and cooperation in various fields expanded. Friends, let's discuss commercial and economic relations. India-China economic relations constitute an important element of the strategic and cooperative partnership between the two countries. Several institutional mechanisms have been established for enhancing and strengthening economic cooperation between the two countries. Besides the India-China Joint Economic Group on Economic Relations and Trade Science and Technology, JEG, and the India-China Strategic and Economic Dialogue (SED). A financial dialogue has also been taking place between the two countries since 2006. India and China officially resumed trade in 1978. In 1984, the two sides signed the Most Favored Nation Agreement. India-China bilateral trade, which was as low as $2.92 billion in 2000, and this relationship has seen rapid progress in the last few years. India-China bilateral trade, which was as low as $2.92 billion in 2000, reached $41.85 billion in 2008. Making China India's largest trading partner in goods, replacing the United States of America. By 2014, India-China bilateral trade stood at $70.65 billion. India's exports to China touched $16.41 billion, whereas China's exports were $54.42 billion. However, India still faces a growing trade deficit vis-a-vis China. In 2014, trade deficit stood at $37.8 billion. Apart from trade, India is also one of the largest markets for project exports from China. Currently, projects under execution are estimated at over $60 billion. As per Chinese figures, cumulative Chinese investments into India till September 2014 stood at $2.63 billion, while Indian investments into China were $0.55 billion. Some key points: iron ores, cotton and yarn, fabric, copper, precious stones, organic chemicals, plastic, salt, sulfur, earth and stone, machinery, reactors, boilers continued to dominate the Indian export basket. Among the products exported from India to China, iron ore, slag and ash constituted a dominant share of 49%, though the export declined by 10% YoY. The share of cotton, yarn and fabrics in the total exports from India to China stood at 10% for the period January to October 2011. Spectacular rise was seen in the exports of copper and articles thereof. Plastic, food waste and miscellaneous chemical products recording increases of 164%. 71%, 64% and 63% YoY respectively. Issue of Tibet. It has been a bone of contention between India and China since 1950, when the Chinese government prepared plans to annex it. India, on the other hand, insisted that China should respect the right to self-rule and settle the issue by holding negotiations with Dalai Lama. But China captured Tibet and declared it as an integral part of its territory. A Sino-Tibetan agreement was signed in 1951 between Dalai Lama and Chinese government, by which China was to have control over external affairs, trade and communications station and army, but not to interfere in internal affairs. India, in the midst of Panchshila agreement, did not act seriously. Later on, Chinese aggressive policies led to flight of people into India. Even Dalai Lama continues to live in exile. India strongly resented to China's stance on Tibet and sided with the Tibetans in their demand for autonomy. In recent years, China's softening stance on Tibet and implicitly recognizing Sikkim as a part of Indian Union has led to change in India's stance on Tibet. It has become more accommodative of Chinese presence in Tibet. Friends, let's focus on boundary dispute. Although the boundary dispute between India and China became stumbling block in the relations only in 1957, its signs could be traced to 1954, when Chinese maps showed parts of Indian territory as its own. In the meantime, Chinese soldiers intruded into Indian territory. India's protest was met with a response that the Sino-Indian boundary has never been formally delimited. China's intrusion continued, and in 1962 they crossed the MC-Mahan line. This marked the start of war, and India faced massive defeat in Northeast Frontier Agency (NEFA). India has repeatedly stressed restoration of status quo ante. But China showed not only reluctance but even captured more land of Arunachal Pradesh in 1986. As of now, the discussions are mainly paralyzed due to ambiguities on 600 km middle sector of the line of actual control. Relation in Post Indo-China War Period, from 1962 to 1971. India and China remained apart. Meanwhile, China came closer to Pakistan and created a situation wherein Pakistan attacked India in 1965. Left with limited option and on account of eagerness shown by former Soviet Union, India signed Treaty of Peace, Friendship and Cooperation with Soviets. This horrified China, and she became bitter critic of India in East Pakistan crisis and supporter of Pakistan on the issue of Kashmir. India's peaceful nuclear explosion, 1974, and Sikkim's accession to Indian Union, 1975, aggravated China's anger. Though the leadership of the two countries expressed desire to restore harmony in their bilateral relation, it was only after K.R. Narayanan was appointed India's ambassador to China that something concrete was achieved. Sudden fall of Janata government hampered the prospects for good relations because initially Chinese continued to see Mrs. Gandhi with apprehension. But as result of her assurance, trade and cultural contacts increased. Soon after, political deadlocks arose on account of India's stance on Soviets' presence in Afghanistan, India's support for Vietnam against Chinese action, India's apprehension over opening of Karakoram passes in POK, Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Boundary dispute continued to be a major irritant. Nevertheless, the economic relationship continued to grow and there was exchange of visits by high-level dignitaries of the two countries. Contemporary issues. In the 1990s, the distrusts and confusion were cleared and there was some progress in the relations between the two countries. Chinese Premier's Li Peng visit in 1991 after a gap of 31 years and a number of agreements and protocols signed by two countries helped ease the tension and widen the area of cooperation. It was followed by Indian President K.K. Narayanan's visit to Beijing in 1992. A series of measures were proposed and accepted as confidence-building measures. The two sides also agreed to enhance the working of Joint Working Group (JWG) to pull out troops from border areas. President Zeman's visit further helped on strengthening the cordial Atmosphere. Indian Defense Minister's George Fernandez accusation that China was threat number one and the nuclear explosions at Pokhran in 1998 halted the pace of relationship. But a visit by Indian delegation. Meeting of Joint Working Group JWG. Visit by Indian External Minister to Beijing helped in easing the tension. Constitution of Eminent Persons Group and military exercises between armies of the two countries widened the area of cooperation. Even on issues between India and Pakistan, China has advocated mutual adjustments through negotiations. The two countries have shown commitment to tackle the threat of terrorism together by constituting a joint working group on terrorism. The relationship between the two countries with distinct socio-economic and political milieu has been marked by great ups and downs. While they fought was in the years when their feelings were striking roots. They have shown more maturity in recent years by constantly engaging through trade and commerce. Except the border dispute, the Chinese leadership has shown tendencies that have helped ward off tension from the apprehensive Indian leadership. In fact, the contemporary and foreseeable international milieu demands the two countries to cooperate with one another in establishing a multipolar world. India-China Bilateral Defense Cooperation. Bilateral defense interaction between India and China has been steadily growing in consonance with other aspects of the bilateral relationship. There have been regular high-level exchanges at the level of defense ministers and service chiefs. Functional level exchanges and military education exchanges between India and China. Ships of the navies of both countries have regularly made port calls. Enhancing bilateral defense cooperation. India and China hold an annual defense dialogue to discuss security and defense cooperation issues between the two countries. The 7th Annual Defense and Security Dialogue was held at Beijing on the 10th of April 2015. Peace and tranquility in the border areas is being maintained in accordance with the various mechanisms and agreements between the two countries, including the Working Mechanism for Consultations and Coordination of India-China Border Affairs and the signing of the Border Defense Cooperation Agreement. The year 2014 was an eventful year for India-China bilateral defense cooperation. The Chairman, Chiefs of Staff Committee visited China in June 2014. The Political Commissar of China's Chengdu military region and India's Eastern Army commander led reciprocal delegations to each other's command, military region in the months of September and November 2014 respectively. In addition to other high-level and functional-level exchanges, the 4th edition of Exercise Hand in Hand, the Joint Anti-Terrorism Training Exercise, was conducted at Pune. The Indian naval ship in Sivalik participated in the multilateral maritime exercise held at Qingdao, China in April 2014. In recent development, as Prime Minister Narendra Modi leaves on a crucial visit to China, let's focus on what key points which will be confronted by both. India's desire. Peace, stability on the LAC, no further Chinese incursions. Roadmap towards solving border issues. Strong economic ties. Greater Chinese investment in Indian infrastructure. To work with Beijing to make his pet Make in India project a success. Greater balance in bilateral trade. China's desire. Solution to border issue. Eased rules for Chinese investment in India. To involve India in his Belt and Road vision for the new Silk Route. To keep New Delhi from forming a strategic anti-China alliance with US. To integrate India into new China-led global economic infrastructure. Viz. BRICS Bank and AIIB. Let's discuss current status of border dispute. 18 rounds of talks between SRs since 2003 have made limited progress. No maps of LAC have been exchanged except in the least contentious central sector. Notions of LAC differ. Neither side is willing to show their hand easily. And selling a compromise to domestic constituencies remains difficult for both. Beijing does not seem likely to give up its claim over Arunachal Pradesh. And no Indian government will find it easy to surrender the claim over all of Jammu and Kashmir. Thanks for watching this video, and for more practice of other aspects of SSB, subscribe SSB Rocks. Friends, please brush up your knowledge about India's claim for permanent seat in United Nations Security Council by the link shown above. Links of all important and current lecturette topics are given in description below. All the best, SSB rocks.